Now, your stories, your struggles, and your successes. This is Focus on South Florida.
Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to Focus on South Florida. I'm CBS 4's Chief Investigative Reporter, Michele Gillen, and we got some amazing stories for you today. We begin this Sunday morning honoring a Florida icon, a trailblazer, a history maker. When W. George Allen graduated from the College of Law at the University of Florida in 1962, he was the first African American to do so. Just 1 year later, Mr. Allen is credited with filing the lawsuit that integrated Broward County and Hendry County public schools. He practiced law in Broward County for just shy of a half-century, and he's an authority on evolution and the progress of fighting for the rights, civil rights. Now, as part of Black History Month, Mr. Allen will speak tomorrow evening at the invitation of the Fort Lauderdale Historical Society. And it's such an honor to have him at our table this Sunday morning. And he's also joining us with a very special lady who has invited him to speak tomorrow night. That's Bonnie Flynn. She's the executive director of the Fort Lauderdale Historical Society. No matter how much we think we know, there's so much more to learn. And, you know, well, goodness, we go way back, and I've, followed your career. You've made such a difference, and it being this important month of studying making change, what do you think you're most proud of?
I think integrating the University of Florida. They celebrated 50 years, and I've practiced 50 years now. In October of 2012, they celebrated 50 years of integration of higher education in Florida. Since I graduated in 1962, over 15,000 blacks have graduated from the University of Florida. And I'm very proud of the fact that we opened the doors, and now it's not a problem anymore.
Yes, and although now we need to, and I know we're going to talk about inspiring another generation to continue on, because while many of us, it's hard to think about a reality of not being integrated. We now have to also deal with equity, yes, of communities that have economic development that are not thrown away and lost, We talked about the one thing I didn't know is that when you were a kid, you worked in the fields of Florida. Yes,
I worked in the celery fields, and we had cabbage and pig beans, and everybody black worked the fields in Sanford, Florida. And the sheriff, if you were downtown and able-bodied, would stop you to find out, doing work, the work days.
Yes.
What are you doing here? And you had to give an account of yourself.
And did that, as a child, rile you? Did you say something's wrong here?
Yes, it did. And I talked to my father and mother about it, and they said that's the way it is. And I was always inquisitive and didn't accept authority very well.
Yes.
But so my dad would always tell me, he said, don't get yourself in trouble or hurt. But obviously it didn't work.
Well, because if you just stay with that mantra, you really can't be a civil rights leader. You do take risks, and you did.
Yeah, I've taken risks since I was a small boy.
And then even taking that passion to the courtroom, because it's not just the voice out in the street of leadership, it's the law.
Yes. And after I graduated, when I was in law school, and before I went to law school, I met Virgil Hawkins, who led the fight to integrate education in Florida. In 1949, Virgil filed a lawsuit to integrate the University of Florida Law School. Virgil went to the Supreme Court 4 or 5 times. He went to the Florida Supreme Court many times. And in 1954 to 58, I was a student at Florida A&M University.
Yes.
And Virgil would come to Tallahassee and would come to the law school with his lawyers and would talk to the students, and I was one of them.
Yes.
And also the lawyers would talk to us, and they would practice their arguments before the Supreme Court of Florida.
Wow.
And at that time, there was a balcony section at the Supreme Court of Florida in Tallahassee for blacks. And I would go and sit in the balcony and watch the black lawyers argue the case for Virgil. They won the case, but still the leadership in Florida wouldn't allow Virgil to go to law school. But they made a deal with him, saying that if you will stand aside and not push your right to go, we will let other blacks go. And that's how George Stark, Regina Langston, entered the University of Florida in 58 and 59, but they didn't graduate, they left. And so then I entered in 1960 because I read that they had left because it was too hard and the people were not kind.
I'm sure so.
And so I applied, I got accepted, and when I arrived at the University of Florida in 1960, I asked for an assignment at married students' housing.
Yes.
And they said, colored can't live here.
I mean, when we hear these things, you know, I mean, this is all the reason why we have museums, we have societies of history, and I certainly know why you've asked him to come speak, and the audience is invited. What do you hope will be garnered at this speech in this series? Well,
I just think that I'm hoping that the people who attend it will be as touched and understanding and really learn things that are not necessarily in the books.
Yes.
And they'll hear it firsthand from somebody who lived it. And that's what we call bringing history to life.
Yes.
So we're just very grateful for the 15th Street Fisheries, our sponsor of this wonderful series of lectures.
That's
and
fabulous.
Having Mr. Allen is a real thrill.
And I know we're going to look at some photographs, too, of the history from Fort Lauderdale. Do you think most of us know very little about it? And in particular, the narrative of, you know, the rock of these communities, which was the African-American community.
I think we all know very little about this, for sure. And that's one of the reasons why we want so desperately to bring the stories to life, so that people can really appreciate this very short history of Fort Lauderdale.
And I would imagine, you know, there's folks out there who might even have some treasure troves, who experiences, diaries. They should bring them to you.
Absolutely, and we do receive many of these kinds of issues and items for our archives. We have over 450,000 photos and things that you can find on our website, which we hope people will visit.
Well, we love items that live on forever, and one of them will be your book. Tell us about your most recent
The name of my book is Where the Bus Stops. I caught the bus from Midway, which was a black section of Sanford, to go to Crooms Academy, which was the high school for all of the blacks in the county. And I rode the bus 12 miles each way, and most of the buses were old and used, and they handed them down from the white schools.
Yes.
But busing was never a problem until we filed suit to desegregate schools, and the courts ordered busing as a tool for desegregation and ordered whites to get on the bus and come to black schools.
Yes.
And that's where the fight started. It was never about busing, because that's the easiest and best way and safest way to get kids to school and back home.
Yes.
So my premise is that it's not busing, it's where the bus stops. And if the bus stops in the black community, white people are against it, and they were against it, and that's what the big fight was about.
And there's some echoes of that we can read in current times.
Today, and that's why we need to get our youngsters to understand that today it's just as bad.
And I think, and I'm so excited, we're going to be doing a story on you on CBS 4 this coming week, so we'll have much more. But in wrapping up this segment, for those who are out there, you know, as you said, many in your generation went and fought for human rights. Today, with so many so educated, lots of folks are going to the big-time law firms, and, you know, it's a money chase as opposed to perhaps a human rights chase. What message do you want to put out there to the men and women out there who can still use law to help?
Well, I use law as a weapon, and I was proud to do it. And it was not money. It was something that had to be done by somebody.
Yes.
And I had a lot of help with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Thurgood Marshall, and Drew Days, and a lot of the lawyers working for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the NAACP. But the youngsters now are not involved. They don't see the need. They don't really, many of them, know the history.
And maybe we can invite many of those younger folks to come tomorrow evening and tell us if they're interested. Where can they reach out?
they can come and it's 231 Southwest 2nd Avenue. It's right down where the river meets the railroad.
Lovely. Some great restaurants in that area, too. Go have a bite to eat afterwards. I'm so happy for the event you're doing. It's always such a fabulous thrill to have you here.
Right.
And I know you're going off on a little bit of fun with your wife. You deserve it. Enjoy America. I know you're hitting the road. So come back and tell us how it was.
I will.
All right. Thank you so much. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.